This is an improved, more simplified version of a motor I've been working on for some time. I consider this my master project because I'm convinced that if you applied the principles correctly that I'm about to explain to you in this video, you could build a self-rotating magnetic motor. I shared some of this information in my video, The Key to Building a Magnetic Motor. I'll post the link below. If you haven't seen it already, I recommend that you do so. What I'm going to do in this video that I haven't done in any other video is to share the rest of the design sketches I've drawn presenting the principles that I believe would allow you to build a working magnetic motor without the complexities common in most magnetic motor designs. I'd recommend copying this video and the key. If these videos are ever taken down, repost them and share the information so that it's out there. The whole point in sharing information about these types of devices is to distribute and implement these technologies to make the world a better place. Let me begin by explaining the most important principle in this type of motor design. This is a magnetic switch. It's used for tasks like picking up sheets of metal or metal objects. It employs a simple shielding technique to lower the interaction between the sheet of metal and the magnets inside the switch to practically zero. This is a Mag Square 400, aptly named because it produces around 400 pounds of magnetic hold force, which can be switched off by lightly tapping a switch. Here's a simple example of how this principle can be used to produce work. The magnetic field in the magnetic switch draws the rotor forward, and by switching off the field, the rotor passes right by the switch. So continuous rotation would be achieved simply by switching the field of the permanent magnet off and on, or shielding it to be more precise. Most magnetic motive force systems use magnets in the rotor and stator assemblies and employ complex geometry to try to produce work. These usually include angling of the magnetic fields and shielding techniques. The system I'm presenting in this video would simply use magnets in the stator assembly. The rotor would consist of metal bars. What would make the system work is simply shielding the magnetic fields of the magnets at precise moments to induce rotation. I'm assembling a small-scale model in this video to demonstrate the principle. To make this work properly, I believe it would be better to use stronger magnets, frictionless bearings, and leverage. If you employ all three of these principles correctly, I believe you could build a working magnetic motor, or self-rotating permanent magnet motive force system, to use more accurate terminology. These are sketches I've drawn from time to time of different designs that employ the principle. Some are rough and others are finished. Please forgive the less refined ones. When I have an idea, I draw a rough version of the design so that I don't forget the idea. Other times I refine it a bit before attempting to build it. Since I've started modeling things in 3D, I usually draw up a really rough sketch and list all of the measurements to apply to the 3D model. It saves time and I'm able to produce a more accurate model in 3D. This is some of the process as I began printing parts for this project. I used bearings on both ends of the rotor assembly and cut aluminum pipe to slide the pieces together. For the magnetic shielding slider, I used fidget spinner bearings. 4 on the bottom to move it back and forth, and 4 on the sides to hold it firmly in place as it slides the shielding material back and forth. I had the shielding metal precision cut by a machinist, as it was essential that the shielding be accurately cut and precise. Everything else I was able to cut from simple parts found from Home Depot or 3D printed on my printer. I designed 4 versions of the magnetic shielding slider before I was satisfied with it. I also had a couple of misprints due to some poor quality filament I ordered online. Be careful of who you purchase supplies from. I had a seller on eBay advertise Hatchbox filament, which is the brand I use on my 3D printer, only to send me some cheap off-brand filament in a Hatchbox container. I decided to give it a try anyway. You can see the shoddy results of the poor material here. Other than the filament I used to print the 3D parts, the bearings, and the shielding material, all of the materials I used in this project can be picked up at Home Depot, including the L-channel, aluminum piping, square pipe, and nuts and bolts. The shielding material I ordered from Koenetic. You can get it in one of their standard shielding lab kits. As you can see when you move the magnetic shielding slider from one side to the other, One magnet is always lined up perfectly with the opening in the magnetic shield, while the other is covered. As the switch takes place, there's always an equal amount of the two magnets shielded as there is unshielded. This is intentional to cut down on the level of magnetic resistance between the fields of the magnets and the shielding material, which consists of 3 evenly machined sheets stacked on top of each other. Because of the fact that the rotor is composed of steel cylinders rather than magnets, the stator magnets are just as attracted to the metal on the magnetic shielding slider as they are the steel bars on the rotor. So by blocking the field with the shielding slider, the rotor can pass right by the magnet that attracts it at the right moment and escape the magnetic field by sliding the shield back and forth. So by blocking the field with the shielding slider, the rotor can pass right past the magnet that attracts it at the right moment and escape the magnetic field. By sliding the shielding back and forth, you can effectively switch off and on the magnetic field at the right moment and induce rotation. You couldn't achieve this if you had magnets on the rotor assembly. That is the main difference between this design and virtually every other magnetic motor. The triangular shapes on the slider act as switches. As the attachments on each steel rod connected to the rotor pass by, they catch on the switch and slide the shielding material to a position that blocks the magnetic field. This happens as the rod passes into the strongest area of magnetic attraction, so that the steel bar may escape the influence of the magnetic field. This method of triggering a switch was one of the simplest ways I felt I could demonstrate the principle of switching a magnetic field off and on for this video. There are better ways to achieve this. Using leverage would be a far better way, for example. The fidget spinner bearings were one of the simplest ways I could demonstrate the sliding mechanism for this video. They make very low friction bearings that would work far better, especially with the stronger magnets that I believe a device like this should have. I frequently get comments from people asking me why I don't demonstrate one of these systems working. There's a very good reason for that, which I'll leave to your imagination. I regard most of my audience as highly intelligent. Just looking at some of the comments I get, I'd consider many of you to be far more intelligent than I am, so I'm sure most of you already know without being told. Regardless, I'm literally sharing everything I know about magnetic motors in the videos I post. I sprinkle little pieces of what I know throughout all of my videos. You have my permission to copy them. You just don't have my permission to monetize them. The little compensation I get from my channel helps me purchase magnets and supplies to keep building and experimenting with different alternative energy devices and documenting my work for you. If any of my videos are ever taken down or censored though, feel free to upload them on your channels and pass them around so that the information gets out there. Before I started this channel, I kept most of the knowledge I had on magnetic motive force systems to myself, and I played things pretty close to the chest. Along the way though, I've come to believe that knowledge shouldn't be hidden away, especially when it could make the world a better place. It should be shared with the world, screamed from the rooftops, if you will. If you have a gift, it's meant to be shared, not hidden away. It's also easier to solve a problem when people work on a solution together. To that end, I hope that the information I've shared on my channel sparks new ideas, inspires creative solutions, and guides people into exploring new areas of research. The surest way to reach your destination is to keep moving forward. Thanks for watching, and do great things.